of violent extremism need to be addressed. We can't keep using hard power, which is military, might, to deal with it. Because if that was the case, I think by now we'd have dealt with the issue completely. I think the reality is there are certain underlying issues in terms of the socio-economic context, in terms of the lack of inclusivity within the governance structure, within the democratic process, and these are some of the things that are feeding the drive that we're seeing in terms of violent extremism. Because when you actually scratch at the surface, there are some people who have joined some of these groups purely for financial benefits. And if some of these people, young people mostly, were actually in a situation to stand on their own feet financially, it would be difficult for some of these groups to entice them. But sometimes those feelings that people in some of these areas have, of this sense of hopelessness, like they don't have a future, they don't have options, makes it easy for them to take that decision to join some of these violent groups. The other thing as well is the issue of governance. When you really dig deep, the issue of good governance, we can't run away from it. We can't run away from the fact that if you don't have governments in place that are inclusive, that are representing the people, that are responsive, that are making sure that women are part of the decision-making process, that the youth are recognized as part of the decision-making process, then you have marginalized groups with grievances that some of these terrorist groups are able to satisfy. And these are some of the things that are feeding this. And this whole forum was really quite interesting, because we had lots of former heads of states here, as well as the service commanders and some of the commanders of some of the operations, and ambassadors as well. And it was just sharing some of the experiences in the field. And the thing was to come up with a plan of action, so that we're not always talking about these things. It's also to see how can we translate these into actionable things on the ground so that we can actually stop talking and doing, but according to a formula that makes sense, but that is context driven, because the context within the Central African Republic is not exactly the same as DRC. It's not exactly the same as in Somalia. And so we must be mindful of not doing the copy and paste to solve every problem, but we must understand the local issues and the things driving whatever the situation is, whether it's the terrorism or violent extremism that we witness in the various countries.